Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. Hey guys, excited to chat with you about today's topic. We got Dave on the other end of this, of course. How's it going, Dave?
It is rainy in Chicago. Imagine that.
It is actually...
It's not snowing, so it's a win for me.
You know, this week for May has been very, well, at least when we record, has been very cool for the Phoenix area.
When you say cool, do you mean like 60 degrees or do you mean like 85?
It's actually been in the 70s, and
oh my God.
One of the days this week, the high is only going to even be 79.
Oh my God, bust out the jackets.
I mean, just think about, you were here months ago and it was like warmer than that. So
yeah,
this is amazing for us. Anyway, you guys don't care about that. You don't want to hear about our weather. So let's just jump right into...
What tools do you use?
Productivity tools. Exactly. And so, you know, the kind of how I wanted to set this up, Dave, is...
Except I ruined it.
Well, no, it's all good. You can't ruin anything, dude. So let's... you did ruin my train of thought, though.
See?
But,
score one for me.
Yes, score one for you. But, you know, at the bigger we got, you know, the bigger we got and the more we grew at Avalanche and the different things that weren't working, keeping people, you know, on task for hours that they spent on projects. You know, we would find, you know, just when we were doing things wrong, it's easier, you know, when you have less people to kind of just keep track of this kind of stuff. But when you start getting a lot more people and you grow and things like that, there comes a point when you really need some kind of tool to help you track what it is you're doing, how many hours you're spending on a project, just besides how, you know, keeping you personally, I don't know what the right word is, you know, just keeping you honest in your hours and what you're working.
Yeah. On
and
task,
so
on time.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, we've used a lot of different tools, and we're going to be chatting about a lot of different tools here. You know, Dave just has a great list for you, but, you know, we eventually evolved into, you know, we started with free, cheap ones that, you know, you hated some things, but you loved some things. And eventually we've graduated and we're a quote unquote real agency now that uses Workfront, and the tools are fantastic, but they're also quite expensive and not like the normal everyday person can use them. And so, we wanted to kind of jump into a episode where we could talk about the tools that we use, the tools that help us on the daily. And it's funny, as we were going through this, like the two tools, and this is where it's awesome because everybody's different and every needs are different. But I look at some of the tools that I use the most are two of the tools that I think Dave smacks down with his hand on the daily. You know, we do a lot of stuff with shared drives and like Google Documents and stuff like that. And a lot of stuff with Slack. And Dave has some personal thoughts on those.
My least favorite two things.
So,
have you ever tried to drop 5,000 rows of data from Excel into Google Sheets? You can drive down the street and get a coffee and come home and it still won't be done.
Really?
Because you don't have anything better to do than, you know, wait for Google Sheets to, you know, accept some data. Yeah, that's my mini rant. That's all.
So I guess, yeah. So I guess what would be your recommendations, or what are some ideas that you have? You know, for, you know, like let's say that you're a smaller agency, a few people, or let's say that you're an in-house person, or you're a one-man shop. You know, what are some of your ideas? What are your thoughts on some tools that people could use to help them have better productivity?
So I'm trying to think. I have like 30 browsers open for this stuff. So many browsers open. So going with the Workfront type of thing, I use Paymo app, which is a task, invoice, project management, proposal thing. In the past, for time tracking, I've used Workfront when I was at Cavario/iProspect. I've used Toggle and GetHarvest and FreshBooks when I was a consultant, or even when I was in-house.
Yeah, we've used FreshBooks in the past as well. It was a great tool depending on how big you are.
Yeah. And it depends on what you want. So do you want to send invoices? If you're an in-house person, you really don't care about invoice sending. So something like a Get Harvest or Toggle in the past is what I used when I was in-house. And I would use it to track my time for, how much time I was spending on analytics, how much time I was spending in silly, weird meetings, how much time I was doing, answering people on Yelp, how much time I was dealing with, helping some developer or something else. It helped me show my boss what I was doing, but it also helped me track, because when you're an in-house person and someone asks for something, you just do it. And I started getting a lot of requests that were always the same.
Well, and here's the thing too, that I'm gonna jump in really quick and cut you off. Sorry, but like, I want you to finish that thought. But this is the part of it that I don't know if you want to call it the dark side or the dirty side that maybe we don't want to talk about, but we've had many cases where this has actually saved our butts, because
Yeah.
some clients not happy with something and it has nothing to do with our work or whatever, and they're trying to accuse you of not spending the time, or let's say they purchased a certain amount of hours and then they try to accuse you of not using it, or like faking that or whatever. Well, when you can go back to these tools and you have something that shows them, hey, look, this is the exact amount of hours that was worked on this. Like, I've tracked it and here it is. Here's your report. And so again, like, we don't like to talk about the bad kind of stuff that can happen with client work or agency work or whatever, but a lot of these tools can save your butt. Let's just be honest.
Well, usually what happens is the scope of work will be for X amount of hours and 2 people on a weekly 1-hour call. And what they'll decide, the client, is that they want 5 people on the call. So now instead of 2 billable hours, there's 5 billable hours. And at the end of the month, they wonder where that extra 15 hours went.
Yep.
It's like, to the meetings that you made everyone come to, that we told you was a waste of time.
Yep.
Yeah. And when you have that, it's kind of handy. So I think those are all tools that I've used in the past. And I know there's others out there.
Well, like, and especially for like what we do at Avalanche, there's like so much design work involved in website design, and there's so many debates and topics of how do you charge per project, per hours, or whatever. After getting absolutely screwed because of charging for projects, we switched to an hourly model, which has been amazing. But when you do that, you have to track it and you have to protect yourself. And anyway, sorry.
No, you do. And I track myself just so I know that if I tell someone that if I'm billing per hour, and at the end of the week, I'm not going to remember how many, 30-minute hour things I worked on. So it protects them, but it also protects me as well.
Yeah, that's great.
I think the next wave of, of tools, and this might not be for everyone but I highly suggest, even if you're an in-house person, try to find some sort of meeting tool, just because more and more people are either having writers, developers, SEO, PPC, someone on your marketing team or even your dev team that might not be local and remote.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people, especially someone like me, I work out of my home office. Anyone I ever work with is remote. So I have, and I'm probably going to switch it first or soon, but I use freeconferencecall.com for my conference calls. But you can also use like Uber Conference. I know a lot of people that love Zoom.
Yeah, we use Zoom mostly at Avalanche, yeah.
Yep. Like all of those work. But then there's also video things. So a lot of people will use, especially if you're hooked into Google Business, will just use like, Google Hangout, Google Chat stuff.
Yep.
But there's other ones out there like appear.in is an interesting one that I've seen people using. And again, like the free conference call, I think Uber Conference does video. Zoom I know does. But then there's also like a new one that's interesting for collaboration is talkshow.team. And it's created by a guy in Singapore, although, because I may follow him on Instagram, he is currently en route to the UK to go learn how to ride his motorcycle he bought.
That's funny.
But he created this thing, and it's actually it might be interesting for your company even, where you can share back and forth, especially with people in different time zones, rather than leaving a voicemail or just email or Slack, it lets you use, walk through things.
You said the S word. You're not supposed to talk about them.
Sure. What?
Slack.
Oh, yeah, I don't like Slack. I mean, I'm mixed about Slack. A little angel, a little unicorn dies every time someone adds me to one. So I love it, really.
Oh, that's funny.
And then there's Loom, and there's some other ones out there. And then there's two other resources that we'll drop in there that I found some of these on, but some of these I just knew about or actually use.
Well, and that's the other thing, for anyone that's new to listening and that doesn't know how we operate, just make sure you check out the site, because we have links to everything that we talk about. We're not leaving you hanging. So,
yeah, and today I'm really going to hate this write-up. I will admit. Luckily, I wrote down most of these. But and if you're curious about what the lists are, there's one on remoters.net/tools. So for anyone working remotely. And then there was an interesting one on the SerpStat blog, which, again, I'll drop the link to it. But, at least having a free, even if it's not the best kind of conference call line, I think most teams should have. So often, when I set up a meeting with someone that's in-house, I tell them I have one, and then they end up just say, call me at this number, and then it doesn't work, or, or they're not at their desk, or, and then I have to call back, and then I email back and forth. It's just better to use a conference line.
Yep.
I'd rather wait 5 minutes on that conference line, just waiting for you to get out of that meeting that's running late, than us then playing email tag for the next 15 minutes while we both wait for email, or you call me, but I'm calling. It's just easier.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I actually love it when, and you could tell those people that you deal with that, when you're trying to set an appointment and they send you back the link to one of those like Zoom or whatever, or iCal, or, they know, they get it. They're like, we're going to stop the, the annoying back and forth. And, believe it or not, I mean, may sound petty, but if you're saving 10 minutes, 15 minutes here or there every day, think about, that's hours upon hours for the month, and that's a lot more productivity that you can get done. So,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
So, something else, we had chatted about this. We'll just give you guys a little bit of a teaser, because we could have a whole series of podcasts on just tools in general. But we talked earlier. We're going to have a friend of mine. Kevin Mullet, he's going to come on a future show, and we're going to talk, he has, whenever he gives presentations, he literally has like hundreds of tools that he breaks down. And so just give you guys a little bit of a teaser to keep an eye out for that at some point down the road.
What's in Kevin's toolbox? I'm just naming the session now, the podcast now.
Awesome.
But there was some other ones that I found that I thought were interesting that it's not. So hunter.io, I don't know if people have heard of it. It's, if you're doing, if you were trying to contact a podcast to get on there as a guest, if you were doing link building, I once used it to try to find an email for someone at a brewery because they weren't responding. You can use it for, on your own site to see, but it uses publicly available info to try to figure out what the pattern is for email addresses, and then also what it's scraped out there.
Huh, interesting.
So, you can use it for, if there's someone that you find on LinkedIn, but you have to use their LinkedIn, go to their website, the company website they work at, use it to, figure out what is it, first initial last name, is it first name dot whatever. We did have one client in the past that had first name dot something, and then it was 4 random characters assigned to each person. Bastards. Smart bastards. But I'd also then, when you have a really large company of, say, 25,000 employees, there's probably going to be a few John Smiths.
Yeah.
Or some common name. So that's an interesting way to get around that as well. But I thought that was an interesting one that I don't think a lot of people use. And there's a number of ways you can use it for, any sort of outreach or anything. But I think tools like that you should look at just to save yourself For those of us that also love to automate things, Zapier and IFT. It's IFTTT. It's 3 T's. Like with IFT right now, I have a couple applets. They used to be something else, but they changed the name to applets, I think, set up. Like I have one right now where I have a spreadsheet in Google that gets updated whenever a hashtag in Twitter appears.
Interesting.
Or ats. So, if you want to look for your own brand mentions or if you're doing a contest or something, and it's free. And I have it set up from, just to search Twitter every day. I have it set up to scan Craigslist for certain things.
I could have used that tool when I was looking for quads. No.
Yeah, see? Exactly. I've used it for cameras in the past.
I could still use it for finding certain lenses. Yeah.
Yeah, for tickets and stuff or certain
that's brilliant.
Things. But then also just, if you can't pay attention to, say, we've talked about it in the past, certain Twitter chats, if you can't pay attention to it but you want to know what people are talking about it on there, set one up to scrape anytime someone drops in the hashtag, PPC chat.
Yeah.
Or blog chat, which is on, what is that, Sundays?
Yep.
You can't make it, or you're always watching your show, or maybe, Game of Thrones out, is worth more for your time. Go take a listen, but Melissa. You could set it up.
Sorry.
Yeah, Melissa. For sure. Lots of people. But, any of those things. And then there's also something I found recently where I was playing with called Airtable.
Oh, yeah. I was curious about this one.
So Airtable, you're talking about how people use, you use Google Sheets or Google Docs and stuff. And I work with a lot of clients that, and even internally for,
apparently
for
they have 5,000 plus lines.
What's that?
Apparently they have 5,000 plus lines, like you were mentioning earlier, like dropping it into, anyway.
Oh, really? But Airtable is interesting. I found one use for it for me personally, and it was like a bid generator. And there's pipelines, and there's keyword research, there's digital content calendars. But what I found interesting about it for collaboration is if you have more than one person, if there's 2 or 3 people, no matter where you are, but also when your data doesn't fit nicely into Excel or, Google Sheets, because it's a mix of different formats. This allows you to have almost what it's like tabs and then create different data types that all tie in together. So it's not like you have one Word doc over here and one Excel over here, or one Google Sheet over here and one, it's all put together in one little workspace.
Interesting.
So, there's different things out there. It just depends on what makes sense for you. And I need to play more around with Zapier more. I've used it in the past, but everything I want is always paid, and I don't have enough that makes enough sense to use. I keep looking at it. And then what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? Where are we at? So for those of us that love pulling keyword research but hate pulling keyword research, Analytics Edge, Supermetrics is also another one similar, where it'll pull from into Excel, and I think Supermetrics also does Google Sheets now and Studio. It's got a bunch of different connectors, but they can connect to Google Analytics, AdWords data, your Search Console. Analytics Edge for me is interesting. I looked at Supermetrics and I forget why, honestly, because I picked it like over a year and a half ago. I went with Analytics Edge for some reason. I should probably look again to see why.
Yeah.
But I can go in and pull by month or different data from, Google Search Console, like super quick, which is really handy for just doing quick checks. Or if I get a new project, I can quickly go and just get the last 16 months in like less than 3 minutes.
Kind of some thoughts I had on this, Dave, which, we joked about this before we started recording, but, we could go and be on a session or a panel or whatever, and like, what's the one question you're always asked the most? But what tool do you use? So you guys, we have given you a whole 20 minutes of just like nothing but tools. So
And us too. So we're both tools.
yes, this is just a session of tools. All right. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap things up, Dave?
One other one, I'll drop a link in the summary because I do not have it open right now because I have too many other things. Was some lovely, bless their soul person updated and came up with a Google Sheet plugin or macro that ties into the SEMrush API.
Huh.
So it's got it set up so that you rather than go into SEMrush and drop it in the keyword and then do an export, you can burn through your API credits, much to SEMrush's happiness, and just pull the data right into Google Sheets. Too bad I hate Google Sheets most days. But yeah, that stuff like that. There's tons of stuff out there, and I've built some stuff like that. But anytime someone builds it and it's cleaner and it works out of the box, I have a half-built SEMrush, half-built Ahrefs type API thing sitting on my box, but it just takes time. So when someone does it and does it right and does it free, bless their soul, I'll buy you a beer or coffee or something if I ever see that person.
Well, and that's kind of my final thought with all this. Everybody listening, they're getting the best of both worlds because if what's the best way to get the cheapest amount of free tools and things that work and actually are useful in this industry? Talk to someone that's a one-man team. We got Dave here.
Yeah, he's lots.
All right. Well, we do appreciate you guys listening and joining us today on the productivity tools. And if there's any questions or anything you ever have, you know how to get a hold of us. But for Dave Rohr with Northside Metrics, I'm Matt Siltala with Avalanche Media, and we appreciate you guys joining us. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks.